I am an enormous Silent Hill fan, and I have been since my teens. The original Team Silent quartet of games will always be important, groundbreaking pieces of work. For their melancholy, unnerving atmospheres, ethereal juxtapositional scores by Akira Yamaoka, and symbolic and sensitive explorations of taboo subject matter. Silent Hill 2 in particular I've often considered to be my favorite game of all time, at least my favorite game narrative of all time. Bloober's remake hit a lot of the right notes for me too. Silent Hill 4: The Room would be a close second in my ranking of the series, not sure if that's still a hot take, for its use of perspective, voyeurism, and how it slowly turns a safe domestic space into a horrifying prison, years before PT and the many housebound horror games it inspired. It's a series that drew inspiration from across cultures and mediums, from the paintings of Francis Bacon and Dostoevsky novels like Crime and Punishment. There's a heavy cinematic inspiration, with films like Jacob's Ladder, Lost Highway, and Eraserhead informing a surrealistic atmosphere, symbolism over exposition, and pastels of rural Americana that harbor evil and dark secrets. So even if there are inevitable compromises adapting an interactive piece of media to a non-interactive medium, if you're a director adapting Silent Hill to the silver screen, the table is set for you. The ingredients are all there, and you even have the films that inspired the franchise to draw from.
Doesn't matter who I am. I am here for you, James. See? I'm real.
Yet Silent Hill's cinematic footprint has been troubled, to say the least. The second film, the boringly titled Silent Hill Revelation, is widely panned and despised. In its best light, fans consider it to be a so bad it's good adaptation of Silent Hill 3. The first and third films, Silent Hill and Return to Silent Hill, were both directed by Christophe Gans, and it's his work on the franchise that I'll be focusing on in this video. Before Silent Hill, his claim to fame was the fun genre cocktail Brotherhood of the Wolf, a key aesthetic influence on From Software's Bloodborne of all things. It's a film that highlights the director's ability to visualize and stylize, his attention to art direction, and his willingness to juggle complex lore and backstories all the while. That's all a match for Silent Hill. Though Brotherhood is also not a film you could ever call subtle, and that isn't. But let's dive in with Silent Hill from 2006, a film that's garnered a reasonable cult following since its original release and is often considered one of the best video game movies ever made. Not a tall order, I realize, but still. In Silent Hill from 2006, a woman named Rose is concerned for her young daughter Sharon, who is tormented by sleepwalking and visions of the eponymous town. After a near-fatal incident, unbeknownst to her husband, Rose decides to take Sharon on a road trip to visit the town, hoping that it will dispel or make sense of her subconscious fixation. Her husband Chris, understandably, isn't sold on the idea. Rose encounters a highway patrol officer, and worried that Chris may have called the police to find and stop them, she flees, suffers a nasty accident, and wakes to find that Sharon has disappeared. And that's not all. Silent Hill is coated in ash and smoky fog as a coal mine fire simmers beneath the surface. Roads in and out have collapsed completely. Through the few aloof and disaffected locals she encounters, she comes to learn of a sordid history of witch burning and religious fanaticism. At the center of it all was a little girl named Alessia, who bears a striking resemblance to Sharon. The film is a French-Canadian co-production that, for one thing, gets the presentation right. It had more than double the budget of its sequel without taking inflation into account, which shows both in how much is done practically to bring the world to life and in how authentic things feel. Canadian production designer Carol Spear did phenomenally imaginative and detailed work on this film, and so many of its transporting and lived-in qualities are owed to her.
Silent Hill is a town that has been abandoned for 30 years. The paint is peeling, the walls are crumbling. We had to show things in like 3 or even 4 variations. I mean, we had a set sometimes, other than having one look, had 3 or 4 looks. It was a real challenge to try and put all the sets together and just to create the texture. I have a passion for movies with texture, and texture just, comes with the aging of sets. So I like sets that can have some age and also some history to them.
Quiet, action.
We found Silent Hill in Brantford. It was probably one of the best finds that we had found in terms of finding a location.
She told us, I know a town not far away from Toronto, you will have the type of industrial look that you were looking for to build around that the universe of Silent Hill.
It was shot by Oscar nominee and frequent Guillermo del Toro collaborator Dan Lauston, and features rich, saturated colors outside of the town and a compellingly washed-out, inky look to Silent Hill itself. It's a great visual trick to separate parallel narratives. Rose is trapped in the town's otherworld, and Chris is retracing her steps from a more stable version of reality. I think the otherworld transformation scenes are cool as well. I know that they riled fans at the time, as that isn't how the shift goes down in the games before, like, Homecoming, but it's a creative and striking merger of practical and CG effects. The cinematography also does a great job of capturing the floating fixed camera angles of the games, with Dutch tilts and crane shots contributing to a sense of voyeuristic unreality. I haven't seen a video game adaptation before or since that's effectively captured the way video game spaces and activities feel without being boring. Checking maps to get her bearings, discovering clues organically, sticking her hand in some wild places to find keys, all of that should ring true for fans of the franchise. The film also boasts nerve-shredding sound design, with each location having its own heightened, creepy ambience. This is noticeable even from the first scene. It layers these soundscapes with Akira Yamaoka's beautiful compositions taken directly from the games. That choice, which I know Gans insisted on, is hugely important. The music is also implemented cleverly, often tied to specific locations, as in a video game. Where it really excels, though, particularly compared to Return to Silent Hill, is in its pacing. This isn't a film that rushes backstories or violently catapults its characters from one set piece to the next. A key part of every Silent Hill game is the feeling of a slow, steady descent into the town's madness. Return to Silent Hill's relentless flashbacks and frenetic pacing made it impossible to lose yourself in the derelict, melancholy atmosphere, and the first film takes a lot of time with that. I've talked to non-fans who were able to have a good time just soaking in the compelling strangeness that Gans achieves here. I rewatched Brotherhood of the Wolf just before this, and after that film I was prepared for a lot more melodramatic moments where monsters dramatically pose center frame and roar at the screen, but there's really not much of that to be found here. It's extremely light on jump scares and other such cheapness. It isn't the scariest horror film ever made, which, okay, that might sound like a big problem adapting a horror game, especially one as scary as Silent Hill. But I'll take that trade-off for the less cinematically overwrought way the atmosphere of the games is presented. Silent Hill doesn't shout, it whispers. The other major asset to Silent Hill 06? Pulp Fiction screenwriter and filmmaker Roger Avary. Avery's script juggles elements and themes from Silent Hill 1 and 2, using the basic setup of a supernatural town drawing in pawns to enact vengeance for past wrongs.
We wanted to create something that derived elements from the Silent Hill games and the Silent Hill universe, but was a bit of a creature on its own.
As in the games, you're confronted with a lot of bizarre, disturbing imagery, and part of the fun is thinking about how it all connects to the traumas and histories of the characters. The cult in the film has a history of witch burnings and themes of vengeance and trauma, both from the perspective of the cultists and those wronged by them, inform Silent Hill's manifestations of evil. It doesn't spell everything out. Well, mostly it doesn't. The late game exposition dumped through an old film reel, even if that's something the games have also done, feels a little clunky. But the story and its iconography click together better than I remembered, and it all feels pretty definitively Silent Hillian. That's not to say there aren't issues that will annoy fans, even if I think the movie is generally very considerate of them. I get that he's the face of the franchise in a lot of ways, but what business does Pyramid Head have with these ladies, man? He should be passive-aggressively fucking with James, not playing Tickle Monster to a motorcycle cop and a woman looking for her daughter. The script does slightly more work justifying the appearance of the nurses, though. They're practically realized and played by talented dancers, ensuring the trademark way they move is highly unnerving.
And the people in effects promised me that they're going to make me one of those latex nurse outfits. I haven't received it yet, so I'm still waiting for that.
Characters do make dumb horror movie decisions at times and jump to conclusions with fucking moon boots. Why does Rose suddenly floor it and run away from a motorcycle cop when there is literally no urgency whatsoever? Why does the motorcycle cop decide, after seeing a relatively tame argument between a mother and daughter, that the girl has been kidnapped? But even when its dialogue is wooden and video gamey, and it absolutely is at times, there's a solid, reputable cast giving their all here. Radha Mitchell, Sean Bean, Laurie Holden, and Deborah Kara Unger all turn in solid, committed performances. I really like the idea of this religious cult kind of creating their own hell, inadvertently starting the coal fire through their fear and their sustained harm of Alessia and the witch burnings.
You're in your own.
The ostensible villain actually turning out to be this pretty justified source of righteous fury is a neat twist.
That woman deserves her revenge.
And when that revenge comes, it's pretty chaotic, crazy, and gory in a climax that I've never forgotten. I wouldn't say this is a relentlessly violent film, but what violence there is has tremendous impact. I like the ending note too, where Rose and Sharon have become too wound into the world of Silent Hill to fully make it back and are just skating on the outside of what they once knew. It's quietly sad and kind of tender, not showy or overdone. So Silent Hill is not a perfect movie, and it's hard for me to know how a non-fan might enjoy it, but as a fan I certainly do. I wondered if rewatching it after Return to Silent Hill might dim my enthusiasm for it, and I was ready to be a lot more critical in this video than I have been, but I've actually come to appreciate it a lot more, particularly after hearing all of these passionate and talented department heads talk about what they poured into their corner of the film. I still think it's one of the best video game adaptations we ever got. Now, Gans' second entry in the franchise. I'm not going to spend as much time talking about Return to Silent Hill, partially because I agree with the general consensus that it's really bad. It's also not easy to source footage that won't get me sent to copyright jail. But I do want to illustrate that, curiously, the many things that it gets wrong were things that the 2006 film got right. One major difference is that Return to Silent Hill positioned itself as a direct adaptation of a beloved text with Silent Hill 2, and not as an original story. It's as an adaptation of that game, despite recreating some of its iconic moments, that it's an enormous failure. James Sunderland in the game is a repressed, painfully ordinary dude. There's a Twin Peaks-esque, folksy aloofness to him, a kind of gentle everyman quality.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
So, I knew I was in trouble when the very first scene in the film introduces a leather jacket wearing James with unkempt hair jetting down the highway in a Mustang smoking a fucking joint. Then suddenly a transport truck is barreling towards him, classic, so he has to swerve out of the way. He manages to somehow not hit Mary, but hit her suitcase, scattering her clothes everywhere. So he has to get out of his car and help her collect her clothes, classic. Then after he does, the latch comes off again and her clothes fall out, so the Greyhound bus that just so happened to be pulling into the stop, right as all of this was going down, she waves away? What? After she just waved it down, making sure it stopped at its scheduled stop? I didn't think we were capable of writing like this anymore, outside of like Scary Movie, but all of this is played completely straight and the whole movie is like this. You do not care about Mary and James's relationship at all. You do not feel any inner torment or guilt from him, even if there's another classic scene where he's thrown out of a bar onto a pile of trash for being sad drunk. He just seems like this hapless, youthful, angsty artist dude, and not somebody who's been trapped in an adult marriage complicated by a serious illness. There's a lot of other reasons Return to Silent Hill doesn't work. For one, I think Gans is used to working with much larger budgets. It feels rushed and hackneyed, and like a lot of material was left on the cutting room floor. I know this is a ready-made defense of movies that perform poorly, but the cast and crew have taken to social media to basically confirm tons of stuff was cut. But the most glaring issue is that Gans had an Oscar-winning writer on the 2006 film, and the absence of Roger Avery is deeply felt here. The writing is just terrible, and no director's cut is going to fix that. Some contemporary reactions from fans were annoyed at the 2006 movie for not being a one-to-one adaptation of the game narratives, but retrospectively that's actually a virtue, and I think a key reason it has aged better. Again, it isn't perfect, but it captures the vibes and atmosphere of the series with a far more measured, thoughtful, and handmade quality. It uses the same setting, iconography, and style to tell its own story of past wrongs, crying out for vengeance, and drawing in real people it needs to complete that vengeance. I don't think a proper cinematic adaptation of Silent Hill 2 is impossible, but I do think it needs a steady, subtle hand. I played through the remake again just to wash the taste out of my mouth after seeing the movie, and I was immediately struck by all of these little moments of symbolism and foreshadowing that don't scream at you, that don't jump scare you, that are just there for the player to happen upon and reflect on. In the aftermath of Return to Silent Hill, a lot of fans, perhaps not unfairly, have lambasted Christophe Gans, decrying him as a horrible fit for the material and as someone who has never understood Silent Hill. And yeah, his early 2000s maximalist instincts feel way more prevalent in his second shot at the franchise. It's hard not to imagine what someone like Hideo Nakata or Kiyoshi Kurosawa might have brought to the table with a lighter touch. Though I think what's indicated by the massive drop in quality between the 2006 and 2026 films is a simple truth that anyone who's worked on set can attest to. In filmmaking, it takes a village. It's not just the director who everything lives or dies with, it's the art director and production designer, it's the screenwriter, it's the budget, it's the patience of the studio, especially with an IP like this. Even with half the budget of the 2006 film, Carol Spear would have brought some magic to a practical Silent Hill as she did the first time around, and she's worked well at a variety of different price points for David Cronenberg since. Paul Jones's makeup effects would have lent a thoughtful and terrifying humanity to the series' trademark monsters. Roger Avery might have helped Gans form a bridge between his own mythology and Silent Hill 2, with more believable dialogue and without scenes that felt too cliché for a primetime soap opera. None of these people returned for the 2026 film, which I think explains a lot. Next time you feel like returning to that special place, the best thing you can do is play the games, which are currently having a strong resurgence. Though, flaws and all, I still think Silent Hill 2006 is a strong adaptation worth revisiting too. There's an old saying that a director gets all the praise when a film works out and all the blame when it doesn't. Whatever your feelings about Christophe Gans and his suitability for the franchise, on the first film he fulfilled one of a director's most important duties, assembling a solid team. It remains a compelling example of just how much passionate and knowledgeable department heads can contribute to a film.